These ACC Week 5 football power rankings are indisputable.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Heading into another critical weekend of ACC games, including a Louisville versus Notre Dame matchup that is for the pride of the conference, because Notre Dame's not a football member. Louisville is ranked 15 and 16 respectively. It's a big one. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I am Alex Dono. He's Kenton Gibbs. Kenton from Locked On Wolfpack. I am from Locked On Canes. Locked On Pain. No, Kenton's hosting Locked On Pain with the way that his team has been playing. We are going to give you on this episode our ACC football game picks for this coming week. We'll talk about who's on upset alert because there are some big favorites within the conference. But I want to talk about our power rankings. And Kenton, before I start unveiling these, is Florida State no longer the worst team in the conference? Because they got a must-win conference dub last week against Cal.
Absolutely. You know, they talk about how Cal is big believers in redistribution of wealth, and they redistributed a win to Florida State because they said from each according to ability to each according to need, and that's what they did in giving Florida State that win there. But I'll tell you what, Florida State has proven that while they did seemingly fall off a cliff at the beginning of this season, you know, something in that team was broken by the playoff snub. They've proven even after falling off a cliff, they're still good enough to win some ACC ball games.
Yeah, I think, if anything, Florida State was very motivated by the Cal Twitter memes, the Calgorithm, when they started talking about turning Doak Campbell into Woke Campbell Stadium. I think it woke up the Florida State team, at least the defense it woke up. So,
absolutely. That defense definitely showed up in a way that we have not seen all year, so more power to them.
All right, so unveiling this week's ACC power rankings, it's unchanged at the top. Now, I'm probably a little bit biased given, you know, the logos that I'm wearing. So I will run this by Kenton just to make sure he is in agreement. We're both going to have to turn our keys on this one. The Miami Hurricanes, they stay up at the top, number one in the conference. They lead the nation in sacks so far this year. Number two in overall passing offense. Cam Ward, the quarterback, has thrown the most touchdown passes this season in major college football, and Miami's not been tested yet. You can only play the teams that are on the schedule. So right. I'm going with the Canes at number one.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm also turning my key and pressing the red button. I agree. This team, they have shown the most out of every team so far this year. I mean, you can make an argument for maybe the team that's in second showing a lot as well, but they're undefeated. You can't beat undefeated and showing a lot.
No, okay, let me see if you agree with who we have at second and third, Kenton, because I've got Louisville at number 2 and Clemson at number 3. I think that one is very much up for debate. You know, Clemson's earned more style points over the past couple of weeks, but Louisville is undefeated, and they just got a pretty nice conference win against Georgia Tech, and they are ranked higher than Clemson is right now, Louisville. And they've got a tough test against Notre Dame this weekend. You know, Miami, who we talked about, has Virginia Tech for their conference opener. Louisville has Notre Dame. That's a big game. Clemson has got Stanford this week, so that's probably going to be another easy win for them. So do you agree with Louisville at 2, Clemson 3, or should we have that flipped?
I think that this is the right direction because the games have to mean something, right? We talk about, hey, you can only play who's in front of you and all that. Well, if you line up the biggest, baddest bully on the block in front of you and he whoops the wheels off you, we still have to factor that in, even if you then show, hey, I'm the second biggest bully on the block. It doesn't really seem like it because the third biggest bully ain't lost yet. He's going around still bullying people. So, you know, in all fairness, this could switch. This could flip depending on some results this weekend. But as we have it now, your Louisville Cardinals, number 2 in the program, number 1 in the good folks in Kentucky's hearts.
Yeah, in Louisville, they're touchdown underdogs at Notre Dame. So if they lose this weekend, and if Clemson steamrolls Stanford like they very well might, then yeah, that could probably be flipped by next week. But for right now, like Kenton said, the games have to matter. That's why Louisville's number 2, Clemson's number 3. So I've got Boston College at 4, team that should be ranked. They're just outside the top 25, and also Pittsburgh at 5. All they've done is win and put up big points. They've got a redshirt freshman quarterback, Eli Holstein, who's playing lights out. And they have a signature win. I mean, that backyard brawl victory and the comeback was a big one, Kenton. So I've got BC 4, Pittsburgh 5. And this part of the list, I feel like is indisputable. Like, I don't know how anyone could argue with those teams being top 5.
Here's the thing that I find so interesting. If you still don't like Boston College, if you still do not believe that's one of the better teams in the conference, I want to know by what criteria. What criteria are you creating that puts Boston College outside of that place? Because they've shown on the road in, Columbia, Missouri, I believe is the city.
Yeah, Columbia. Yeah.
They're on the road in Columbia, holding their own against a top 10 team. Out of the conference where it means more. They didn't just hold their own. They gave them everything they could handle over there in Missouri. And so you look at that team, all they've done is won out before that. They've shown up. They have exceeded all expectations by a mile, even including a loss. You got to give them their guts. And Pittsburgh, exact same story. I mean, those are some cardiac big cats over there because the Panthers just keep finding a way. And Holstein, when the time gets tough, when it gets to the crunch time, when it gets to, oh yeah, he's gonna show that freshman, he's gonna show that he's still breath full of Similac. Nah, he doesn't do it. He shows up every time.
Okay, now here I start to overthink our own power rankings. I feel like I might be doing Duke a disservice because I have them down at 10, and they've won all 4 of their games so far. So I've got Syracuse at 6, which I don't know. It feels, it feels too high after what happened last weekend against Stanford. So we could probably flip this around a little bit. In fact, I may move Duke way up. So I've got Syracuse at 6, Georgia Tech 7. They just suffered that loss last week at Louisville. I've got SMU at 8. Stanford 9, Duke 10. But you know what? I think I'm going to make a judgment call here, and I'm going to move Duke up a few spots. What do you think?
I like it because as much as I like Key, as much as I like Georgia Tech, everybody knows how much I've sung Coach Key's praises. They have not been consistent. They have not shown, hey, we can consistently show up and do it at a high level. And also, with how bad Florida State looks, that win lost a lot of its luster. It lost a ton of its luster. So I honestly think that Georgia Tech being rated inside the top 10 right now is a little bit of a, but why? What's going on there type of moment.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move Duke up, and I'm going to move Syracuse and Georgia Tech down. I think SMU, though, sticking at number 8 just feels right because I'm still not buying in on them, although it was a big win against TCU. We'll see how they look against Florida State this weekend. So getting outside the top 10, I've got the Calgorithm at number 11. They dropped big time after their disappointing 9-point performance against Florida State. I've got Virginia Tech at number 12. Ball don't lie, Kenton. Like, I feel Virginia Tech, I think they're capable of far more than they've shown on the field so far. They really should not have lost to Vanderbilt on the road. They really should have looked better against Rutgers. You know, I know as a Miami guy, I can't talk too much about losing to Rutgers. It happens, okay? But they should have looked better in that game. And then I've got NC State at number 13. They dropped big from where I had them last week.
Let me tell you something. NC State and Virginia Tech are the greatest example of the games matter. Both of those teams on paper are really good. On paper, everything makes sense. Everything clicks. In reality, the starting left tackle that was supposed to be a very early round draft pick for NC State just got benched and was on nightcap with Ocho and Shannon Sharp for spitting on somebody. That's the reality. The thought of Virginia Tech is they got this dynamic quarterback, running back combo. They got some big bodies out wide. They can get it done. They've got an offense that's super senior, super experienced, super veteran. Everybody can do it. The reality is Kyron Jerome struggles to get beyond read number 1. it is unlike anything I've ever seen at the college level, to where like he looks completely and utterly flabbergasted when he's like, they took away the first read. What's happening here? It is something like I've never seen. So again, the games matter. The reality of who Kyron Drones is, the reality of who NC State has been by and large. And then don't get me wrong, that Virginia Tech team, they have problems beyond Kyron Drones, because that rushing defense that we talked about all offseason, for some reason, some random bald guy with 2 bad Achilles knew, oh, they may need to address that. They may need to get some big fellas in there, get some beef in there. No, they didn't. And now the grandma's still screaming, where's the beef? Because running backs are running straight down the alley on that team. But, that's kind of, you get what you get. Those teams are supposed to be good. The reality does not match.
Yeah, and then another thing, I didn't realize how bad this stat was, but Virginia Tech, they're not protecting Kyron Drones either. They're 106th in the country in sacks allowed. They've given up 2.5 sacks per game so far, and that's I'm studying this matchup for the Miami Virginia Tech game tonight. Miami's pass rush has been really good. Virginia Tech has not protected Kyron Drones, so that's another area that Miami could possibly exploit. But rounding out our power rankings, 14, 15, 16, 17. I've got North Carolina 14, which kind of feels like too high based on what happened against James Madison. I've got Virginia at 15. Florida State, they rise big. They move up a spot to number 16. And then I've got Wake Forest rounding out the list at number 17.
I mean, hey, Florida State is right where they belong. That group stinks. It's awful. I'm disappointed in Cal for letting them win a game. I am telling you right now, Donald. Brian Smith said, I don't know if they get 4 games this year, and I couldn't believe it. After watching that game, you're damn right they might get 4 or less. That is again, Brock Glenn can't be worse than what you tried. Now, and if he is, why is he still on your roster? Go to that young man and say, hey, listen, the Sun Belt's got plenty of schools that need a quarterback. The Big South Conference, the Big Sky Conference. They've all got somebody who needs a QB. You're not going to do it in Tallahassee, brother. But I heard that FAMU, you know what? You might do it in Tallahassee, just wearing the orange and green instead of the garnet and gold. Because if he is worse than what DJ is, so much so that you can't even consider getting him in, boy, I'll tell you, that team who stunk. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. Other than that, they're a damn good team.
Yeah, right. Outside of that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play is the question you have to ask. Well, we have a lot more to come on this episode of Locked On ACC. We're going to make our game picks for this coming weekend. There are, I believe, 9 matchups involving ACC teams this weekend. Is anybody on upset alert? We'll talk about that when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial flavors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5 APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Thank you for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton and Grayson do an awesome job hosting Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. We will be preparing you for all the matchups this coming weekend involving Atlantic Coast Conference teams, especially the ones that we cover. And let's talk about some of those matchups now, Kenton. So I'm looking through the biggest favorites this week. I'm looking at 17th ranked Clemson, giving 21.5 points against Stanford. I'm looking at Syracuse minus 28.5 against Holy Cross. I get it, I guess. That's a big number. And Miami minus now 17.5 against Virginia Tech. That's been a funky line this week, Kenton, because early in the week it was about Miami minus 17. It inflated to Miami minus 19 in some places. It's back to 17.5. So the wise guys can't decide what they're doing with that one, apparently. But out of those big numbers, which of those teams do you think is most likely to suffer the upset bug this week?
I don't think there's a team likely to suffer the upset bug outright. I don't think that there's one that gets that. But I do think that Western Kentucky and Boston College line is something that could be interesting.
Yeah.
It is something that could
minus
be
13 BC. Yeah.
I am telling you, I don't know what it is about Western Kentucky and that offense, but I'll tell you, they absolutely get it done through the air. They spread it around, and I know that is a team that got blanked this year by Bama. I get it. They looked exponentially worse than USF did against that same Bama team. But I am telling you, that is a team that if they get rolling through the air, they could definitely find their way covering. I'm not sure about winning because, again, that team, they've shown up big time. And I know Coach Jason Veldkamp, former head strength conditioning coach at NC State, is probably excited to hear me shout out his boy, but Caden Veldkamp really is the real deal. And so is Castellanos. Don't get me wrong. I think Castellanos is the better quarterback overall, and he does more. But, again, if you let Caden get hot, those Hilltoppers, I'm not saying they come out on top altogether. They can give you a run for your money.
Yeah, it's one to look out for. Now this one, not as big of a spread, but I wonder why it's not a bigger spread, because your NC State Wolfpack are only, I guess I get it, because we know what, Northern Illinois has already done this year, but NC State only 6.5 point favorites at home against NIU. Are you worried about covering or even winning that game?
I'm absolutely worried about winning that game. I'm very concerned because NIU has a back. It's an NFL guy. I'm sorry, I don't want to mess up the name here, but Ant Brown is what he goes by. And this young man is very, very special. If he were 3 inches taller, he'd be on everybody's big board as probably RB 2 or 3 in this draft. He is compact. I want to say he's about 210 or so. He's 5'9", for Christ's sake. Imagine what that body looks like, all that type of muscle. And guess what the estimated 40 this young man runs is? About 4.4, 4.45. He is a freak. Second in the MAC last year in rushing. And guess what NC State doesn't have? Linebackers that do a great job of defending the run at the moment. Guess what NC State doesn't have? Safeties that fit runs properly while running a 3.35. You're damn right I'm worried, Dano. You're extremely right I'm worried about this team winning outright, because we've already seen one coach in his annual bowl lose in the reunited Peaches and Herb game in Norvell losing to Memphis. Is Dorn going to follow that up by saying, hold my beer, I've got one more for you? So I really hope that the inaugural Dave Doran Bowl doesn't end in a NIU win, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried.
Yeah. It's like when I'm looking at the Miami hosting Virginia Tech game, which is tonight, Friday night, it's like I'm as a Miami guy, I'm very superstitious, and I've seen Miami go 3-5 in ACC play each of the past 2 years. I think this team is different. I know this quarterback is different, but I never take any ACC opponent for granted, Kenton. But at the same time, it's like on paper, when I try to find the ways Virginia Tech beats Miami, the only really path that I see to that are a lot of self-inflicted wounds from the Hurricanes side. I think Miami has the horses, and Virginia Tech has not played up to the talent level. Also, some of the things Miami does really well happen to play into weaknesses for Virginia Tech. I mentioned they haven't protected Kyron Drones well. Miami's number 1 in the country in sacks. Miami has been kind of average running the football this year, but Virginia Tech is, I think, 102nd in the country in stopping the run. So if there was a game to really get Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher going, this one might be the one to do that. So there's I don't know. It's like, but at the same time, if Miami's really going to get, if their rushing defense, which has been very good this year, is really going to get tested, Bishal Tootin and Drones himself can do a lot there. I mean, Drones is built like a linebacker at 235 pounds. If he can get going, as a dual threat guy, he could give Miami some trouble here. But it's like I'm having trouble finding a path to victory for Virginia Tech that doesn't involve like the type of turnover game that Cam Ward just hasn't had this year.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. This is, when you look at this game, even if we say this is Virginia Tech's best game of the season and this is one of Miami's mid-level games, do you see Virginia Tech winning that game? I don't take that bet. I'm sorry. I think that Miami is showing that they're really, really special. And again, there is always the thought of, hey, you have not played a good or a decent or even anything but a horrible, about to lose their head coach, Power 14. There is that thought. But like Dono always says, you can only play who's in front of you. And the guys that have been in front of them, they have smacked the wheels off of so far. So I look at this game and I say, if there's a comedy of errors by Miami, yes, Virginia Tech has a shot. If there are not that comedy of errors, if there is not that moment where you're kind of stuck looking at Cam Ward saying, just throw the ball away, dude. Just take a sack. If that doesn't happen multiple times this game, I really don't see too many ways that Virginia Tech can come out of this as winners.
Let's go on record with some game picks when we come back. We'll take a look at the ACC schedule for this weekend. He's Kenton Gibbs. I'm Alex Dono. You guys want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. We're certainly not done with FanDuel. And guys, we've been talking about who's going to pull off upsets this week. Are these spreads too big? You can find all of this info and get action on all of these games on America's #1 sports book, FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes, Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. All right, so Kenton, taking a look at the slate this weekend. Let's start with Florida State on the road at SMU. SMU favored by 6.5 points. I don't know what to make of this game or this line. I think the only thing that I'm pretty confident in is just based on the way that Florida State's defense has been waking up the last couple of weeks. Pat Payton in the pass rush have been coming alive. Their offense still can't score. So the only thing I'm pretty confident in is under 48.5 points. I'm not sure who's going to win the game. Do you think SMU gets it done and knocks Florida State down to 1-4?
Let me tell you something. SMU is going to show why Florida State wins over Florida State have lost their luster. I don't think that this Florida State team can do enough offensively to exploit the holes that exist within SMU. Do they have a defensive line that will absolutely go to work against it? Yes, for sure, 1,000%. But will they do enough offensively to win down in Dallas? No. I got the Mustangs taking this one.
Okay, another game we haven't talked about yet much this week, actually. We did talk about it on the squad a little bit yesterday, but the Duke Blue Devils, 2.5-point favorites at home against North Carolina. Like, I can't in good conscience pick UNC to win a game after they gave up 70 points to James Madison, I should say. So I've got the Blue Devils winning at home and covering.
I hate to have to give a Tar Heel credit here, but I think that Mac Brown is going to circle the wagons in this one. Don't get me wrong. Malik Murphy, Manny Diaz, they've looked good. I don't think that they've played anybody that has given them any type of serious pause except Northwestern in a game that they should have lost. So with that in mind, I think that they figured it out offensively enough. And defensively, I have to trust that they'll get some stops eventually. I have to trust that they just were saving all the stops for this game. and they'll do something here. But I think the Tar Heels win a close one here.
Now, what about 15th ranked Louisville on the road at 16th ranked Notre Dame? Of course, Notre Dame just a couple weeks removed from the upset of all upsets. What happened to them against Northern Illinois? Are they fully back? You know, they bounced back with a convincing win against Purdue. Louisville's undefeated. You got quarterback whisperer Jeff Brom has found a better quarterback this year in Tyler Shuck, who's off to a really good start. I get this weird feeling. I know Louisville's got some injuries at receiver, but I've got this weird feeling that the Cardinals go in there and eke out a close win in South Bend.
I had that feeling too. But then I looked at the rest of Notre Dame's schedule. This is the last chance that they have to even sniff, to even gaze upon, to even stand on the same street as the playoff this year. If they lose this game, there's nothing. Coach Freeman needs to coach like his job depends on it, because guess what? Yeah. It very well might. This game has to mean everything to Notre Dame. I think it will mean everything to Notre Dame. I think that they win a close one for the Gipper in front of Touchdown Jesus. I think they just barely, and there may be some controversy. I feel like this is one of those games where you see something happen toward the end where you're like, wow, that's some big home cooking. But I think Notre Dame pulls a very, very close one out by the hairs on their chinny chin chin.
All right, so let's round these out. We've already talked about most of the rest of these games. I mean, are we in agreement? Let me list a few of them here. Are we in agreement that Miami wins outright against Virginia Tech?
Yep, two thumbs turning the key.
Okay, what about Clemson? They're going to win outright against Stanford. They're favored by 21.5 points.
They
Syracuse,
win and they cover in that one.
Yeah, Syracuse is going to beat Holy Cross. They're 28.5 points favored. What about what's the final verdict on NC State? Do they win the game outright, even if they don't cover?
No, I don't think that they. Hold on. I'm sorry. The Wolfpack are on the CW. Now I know what you're thinking. What a third-rate school. Ill, gross. There's something about the CW that it imbues the Wolfpack with the special powers. It's like how Prince said, purify yourself in the water of Lake Minnetonka. Well, the CW is NC State's Lake Minnetonka. Going into this week, I had Northern Illinois winning by a close one. After seeing it was on the CW, I don't think that NC State lets down here. I think that they win and they cover.
Are they on right after a new episode of Gossip Girl on the CW?
Apparently, maybe Gilmore Girls. Who knows? I'm not sure what they're playing over there these days.
What's the other one though? Way back in the day. Are you too young? Do you remember Seventh Heaven? I think that was actually okay, just making sure. I don't even think they called it CW.
I was an OG Jessica Biel guy, baby. You know, the father on that show got a weird case. Why is he around? But Jessica Biel, that was a throwback. That was a throwback right there, man.
From Seventh Heaven to NC State football, the CW has come full circle. What about, let me see if there's any others here. What about Louisiana at Wake Forest? It would not surprise me if the Demon Deacons go down at home.
Hey, listen, I don't know who needs to hear this. I don't know who needs to know this. Wake Forest is a 3.5-point favorite. I think they're the only favorite to outright lose this week. I don't see a world where they beat the Raging Cajuns here. Shout out to Louisiana. I think that they get it done. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Brockenmeyer and company show something really, really special here. I just don't see it coming.
Well, we'll talk to you guys after the games. It should be some good ones this weekend. For Kenton Gibbs, I am Alex Donald. We'll talk to you guys again next time on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.